this was a 34-point outcome at one moment. I mean, it was like 80, I think it was 80 to 56 or something like that. But I feel like the Timberwolves did a better job defensively against Luka in the second half. But Kyrie woke up a little bit in the second half too. Both guys had 36 points. Both guys did a great job. But I want to congratulate the Mavs, and they're going to the NBA Finals. Luka's going to the NBA Finals for the first time in his career. That's a great thing. Kyrie has a chance to win his second title. This is he went to 3 different titles with the Cavs. Is that right? He had the 2014-15 season, which I know he was hurt most of that finals against Golden State. Then, he won the finals. Yeah, this will be his 4th finals, 3 with Cleveland, now his 1st with Dallas. Kyrie will be in his 4th NBA finals to have a chance for his 2nd NBA finals win. And Luka will be in his 1st. And I'm gonna get into a lot of things, but I want to talk about Minnesota first, because Minnesota, I mean, you have to take your hat off for them, because Minnesota, I mean, they had a great run. They had a great run, and they were such a young team, and they will be back in this stage. But I have to go to them beating Denver. That is just, for them to take out Denver, that is something that, a young team with a young player, 22-year-old like Anthony Edwards, to do, for that team to take them out and win a Game 7 in Denver, win 3 games in Denver, a Denver team who was dominant in Denver when playing at home this regular season, last postseason, last regular season. This is a Denver team who was dominated at home, and not a lot of teams have been able to take them down in Denver. You gotta give some credit to them. I know Phoenix is not a great team, but they have talent with Durant, Beal, and Booker. They swept them. They took Denver to 7 games, took them out on the road in Game 7, beat them 3 times when Denver only lost 1 time in the postseason last year. When they won the championship at home, they only lost once, and that was to Miami. So Denver does not lose at home often. They are dominant at home, regular season or postseason, and Minnesota took them out. But I look at the Anthony Edwards at his age, and I'm looking at the team they just lost to, and I can't help but think about the Luka and the Mavs. And if you think about Luka and the Mavs, I mean, just 2 years ago, same situation too. Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks lost in 5 games, just like Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves just did, to a red-hot Stephen Curry, and went down. And had a rough year after that, rough season last year, didn't even make the postseason. I don't see that upcoming for the Timberwolves, but they make adjustments. They trade for Kyrie, and the next thing you know, the next year after that, they're in the NBA Finals. So I think the Timberwolves will be back in this stage sooner rather than later. But, honestly, if you think about how Luka 2 years ago, at Anthony Edwards' age, 23 years old Luka was 2 years ago. Luka's 1 year older. Anthony Edwards is 22, but I think he's going to be 23 soon. Luka was 23 when he did lose in the Western Conference Finals to the Warriors. He goes down in 5 games to Stephen Curry, who was absolutely going off in that 2022 postseason. And 2 years later, he's in the NBA Finals. I'm not going to say the Timberwolves will be back in the NBA Finals maybe next year or 2 years later from that, but I think saying that, what Luka has done, what the Mavs have done in the last 2 years, and especially with Anthony Edwards and Luka Doncic being at very, very close ages in the timelines, I think there's no doubt that the Timberwolves will be back in this stage, if not just the Western Conference Finals, the NBA Finals as well. But I don't think that is just because of Anthony Edwards. This team is great. Chris Finch is an excellent head coach, and I feel like not having him fully available in these last 2 series have definitely probably taken a toll on their team. But Finch has not been able to do the full abilities as a head coach, tearing his meniscus in the first round of the playoffs. But still, I mean, he's been able to be on the sideline. But still, it's different. He's not able to. Well, he's walked around a little bit sometimes, but Chris Finch is an excellent head coach. Anthony Edwards, of course, is an excellent star. But there are other pieces of this puzzle for the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards has said it so many times, but a guy like Jaden McDaniels is definitely huge to their success. There are other players on this team. The players that play such a big toll defensively would make this Timberwolves team such a great defensive team, which they really didn't look like it in this series, but they're a great defensive team and did a great job against Denver defensively. Not really so much against Dallas, but they got great defensive players like Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert, and even Karl-Anthony Towns is a great defender. Mike Conley is a good defender. So this is not just a team. They're not scary just because of Anthony Edwards. They have one of the best defenses in the NBA. They have a great head coach, and I think if it's not next year, I think in the next year or two, they will get their chance in the NBA Finals. But I want to get to Dallas because they are heading to the NBA Finals. Luka Doncic was excellent with 36 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 14 for 22, 6 for 10. He shot the lights out in this series, really did. I mean, he started off this game with 4 threes early on. It was fantastic. 36 points for Kyrie Irving, who had 5 assists and 4 rebounds as well. Shot 14 for 27. Really had a terrible Game 4 performance. 11 points and 9 rebounds for Daniel Gafford. 5 points for Derrick Jones Jr. with 2 assists and 2 rebounds. 12 points and 7 rebounds for P.J. Washington. I get to Gafford and P.J. Washington. Honestly, I said it at the trade deadline. My biggest winner at the NBA trade deadline was the Dallas Mavericks. And I didn't see this when I said that. I said that, number one, because I really like P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford as players, and that was a really big need that the Dallas Mavericks needed, and they added those two guys in. But it was also really a weak NBA trade deadline, if you guys remember. Not a lot of stars traded, not a lot of big names either. There weren't even caliber all-stars traded. It was a very weak trade deadline, but I felt at the time like two teams. I can't remember the other team that made some good additions that I really liked. But the Dallas Mavericks were one of the teams, maybe it was the 76, I don't know. I'm trying to think about who that other team was that I really liked what they did at the trade deadline. It was the Knicks, I think. Yeah, it was the Knicks because they added in OG Anunoby. They added in Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. That really didn't turn out great for them because a lot of those guys were injured. But it was the Knicks and the Mavericks that I really thought made an impactful trade deadline. But, when I picked the Mavericks as winners for the trade deadline because of what they did bringing in P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, one of my things was they didn't give up that much for those two guys who are definitely two players who are going to, come in and make an impact early on. That was really something that, I just thought that I didn't when I picked Dallas to be as my trade deadline winner, I didn't think that those two guys would make it easier for this Dallas team to make the NBA Finals, because I honestly think as good as Luka and Kyrie are, those two guys without Gafford and PJ Washington, the Dallas Mavericks are not here. I like Grant Williams. He was one of the best players that got traded from the Dallas Mavericks for those two guys. He's a good player. Seth Curry as well was one of those guys that got traded. I'm trying to think about anybody else. I think I don't think Davis Bertans was one. I really think that they did an excellent job at the trade deadline, and I don't see them being in the NBA Finals right now if it's not for those two guys, because look at the first round against the Clippers. I don't know if they get out of the first round because Luka struggled heavy in that series, even a little bit in the Thunder series. Luka definitely did struggle from time to time, and guys like PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford stepped up when they needed them. And honestly, I don't think Dallas is in the NBA Finals right now, and probably I think they're at home watching the outcome of this series without those two guys if those two moves are not made at the trade deadline. So those are two great additions. But Derrick Jones Jr. had 5 points. Bench scoring was, definitely great, or not great, but good. Derek Lively Jr., 9 points and 8 rebounds. I thought it was a big risk to put him in this game, especially up 3-1. Tough neck injury that he suffered in that game 3, and I was right because early on he gets hit in the neck. Luckily, I think the Mavericks are stayed very lucky, and he gets to stay in the game. I think what's going to be great for this Dallas team. If you look at the Celtics going to the NBA Finals, what's great for them getting this rest, having a week and a half off, is a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, who is injured, gets some time off, and he gets to gets more time to rest and get healthy. But I look at Dallas, and I think Derek Lively is someone, he gets a week off to get that neck or head or whatever is going on with. I mean, if it was a concussion, he wouldn't be playing. So I think it is a neck problem, because he did get hit in that little bit of the higher neck area tonight by Naz Reid, and he definitely was in some pain. So I believe it is a neck problem, because there was a question. Okay, is his neck messed up, or is it a concussion? Is it a head injury? I don't think he'd be playing if it was a head injury. And since he got hit in the neck and was banged up, I think it for sure is a neck injury. But he gets a week to pair up whatever something's bothering him, because if it wasn't a problem, I don't think it would have been as bad as he was hurt again in this game. So get him rested up, and I think him having some time off is definitely going to be something, because yes, Gafford has done a great job for this Mavericks team, but the 1-2 punch of Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford is definitely amazing, and you're going to want your bigs like P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively the second, and even Derek Jones Jr., who's another bigger guy, to be ready and healthy to go against a Celtics team who has some size, and Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, also big, smaller bodies, but great defenders like Drew Holiday and Derek White. So you want all your guys to be healthy and ready to go against a good good sized and great defensive team like the Celtics, who have big bodies in Tatum, Porzingis, and Horford, and then not very big bodies or tall guys, but still great defenders in Derek White and Drew Holiday. So I think for the Mavericks, a week off for them, and definitely a week and a half off for the Celtics it definitely has to be great. But for me, honestly, going to be upset with no week of basketball, but the finals are going to be pretty interesting between these Mavs and the Celtics. So, yeah, this was a fun series. This was a 5-game series, but outside of this game, every single game in this series was a close game. Up until this matchup, every game was a close game. So, this was a good series. This was a 5-game series, which is, we want to see 6 or 7-game series, but I feel like when you look at it, you might look at the 5-game series. Oh, this was not that entertaining series, but every single game of this series was close outside of this close out game 5. Let me know your thoughts, and peace out.